For years, you've probably heard that you have to choose between cardio and strength training, as if your body had a vote and you could only pick one. The science says the choice itself is the problem. Welcome to Longevity Lab. I'm Claire.
And I'm Robert. Claire, this one already sounds like it's going to change something I do every day, and I haven't even heard the evidence yet.
That's exactly why I wanted to do this episode, Robert. Because the way we talk about exercise is often built on a false divide.
I need to confess something before we go any further. For most of my adult life, I've treated walking as my exercise of choice. I thought that was the heart health hero. Strength training, I assumed that was for younger people or bodybuilders or people who wanted to look a certain way. Not really for a guy in his 60s who just wants to stay healthy.
And you're not alone. That belief is everywhere. It's in magazine headlines, gym marketing, even well-meaning advice from friends. The idea that cardio is for your heart and strength is for your muscles, and somehow you have to trade one for the other.
Right. And to be honest, I also had this little voice saying, don't lift weights at your age. You'll hurt your back, or you'll end up with sore knees for a week. So I just kept walking.
That's a genuine concern, and the fear of injury is understandable. But here's the part most people miss. When done appropriately, strength training doesn't just build bigger muscles, it protects joints, stabilizes bones, improves blood sugar handling, and this is the surprising bit, it can be just as important for long-term survival as cardio.
Wait, so strength training is not just about looking stronger?
No. It's about what your muscles do for your metabolism, your blood sugar, your bones, and your brain. And when you combine it with aerobic work, the effect on lifespan is not just additive. The research suggests it's actually synergistic.
Synergistic. Okay, I love that word. But I need you to slow down because you've just told me my walking habit might be missing half the picture.
That's exactly it. Not that walking is bad. Walking is fantastic. But it's one part of a bigger system. The human body doesn't operate in separate categories. Your heart, lungs, muscles, bones, and blood vessels all talk to each other.
So what does the research actually show? I'm ready to have my assumption challenged.
A 2022 meta-analysis published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine combined data from more than 400,000 adults. The researchers looked at people who met aerobic exercise guidelines, people who met muscle strengthening guidelines, people who did both, and people who did neither.
I have a feeling I know which group came out on top.
It was the group that did both, by a meaningful margin. Meeting both aerobic and strength recommendations was associated with roughly a 40% lower risk of death from any cause, compared with doing neither. That's not a small statistical blip. That's a pattern that showed up again and again across different populations.
Okay, so my daily walk, don't get me wrong, I love it, but I might have been overestimating what it was doing for my longevity.
I'd frame it differently. Your walk was doing exactly what walking does. It was supporting your heart and lungs, improving circulation, lowering stress, and probably helping with sleep. But it wasn't building the muscle reserve that helps you remain independent and resilient as you age.
Muscle reserve. That sounds like something I want more of.
It's one of the most underrated concepts in healthy aging. Think of muscle as a metabolic reservoir. It stores glucose, it burns energy even at rest, and it acts as a shock absorber for your joints. When you lose muscle mass with age, you lose capacity. When you keep it, you keep options.
And strength training is how you keep that reservoir full.
Exactly. But here's the counterintuitive piece. The evidence doesn't say choose strength instead of cardio. It says the combination is where the biggest benefit lives.
So the myth is that you have to choose. The truth is, you need both, and maybe more importantly, you need them woven into the same week.
Let's get into the mechanism, because this is where it gets really interesting. Aerobic exercise improves a measure called cardiorespiratory fitness, often tracked through VO2 max.
VO2 max. I've heard that term, but if you ask me to explain it to my neighbor, I'd probably butcher it.
Most people would. VO2 max is the maximum amount of oxygen your body can use during intense exercise. Think of it as your engine's capacity to deliver oxygen to working muscles. Higher VO2 max is one of the strongest predictors of long-term health we have.
So every time I walk briskly, I'm giving that engine a tune up.
Yes, especially if you get slightly out of breath. The heart pumps more blood, the lungs move more oxygen, and tiny blood vessels called capillaries expand to feed your muscles. Over time, your heart becomes more efficient, your blood pressure often improves, and your mitochondria, the tiny power plants inside your cells, become better at making energy.
Okay, mitochondria. I know they're the energy factories. My grandkids love saying that word.
It's a great word, but here's the part most people don't realize. Muscle strengthening work improves mitochondria too, just through a different route. When you lift, push, pull, or carry something heavy, you create small beneficial stresses in the muscle. The muscle adapts by getting stronger and better at pulling sugar out of your blood.
So lifting weights helps with blood sugar?
Very much so. Muscle is the largest destination for glucose in your body. After a meal, your muscles soak up glucose in response to insulin. The more active muscle tissue you have, the more glucose you can clear from your blood. That's a big reason why strength training is linked to better insulin sensitivity and lower risk of type 2 diabetes.
That reframes the whole thing for me. I thought strength was about biceps. You're telling me it's about blood sugar, metabolism, and aging well.
That's exactly what the research shows. And there's more. Strength training applies positive load to your bones. Bone responds to mechanical stress by becoming denser. That matters enormously because falls and fractures are a major threat to independence in later life.
As someone in his mid-60s, that hits home. I want to be the person who gets up from a chair without groaning, and definitely not the person who breaks a hip.
And the beautiful thing is, strength training doesn't have to mean barbells and a personal trainer. Even simple bodyweight movements, sit to stand from a chair while push-ups, carrying groceries, count when they're done with enough effort and consistency.
I want to push back a little because I've also heard the opposite from some younger fitness people. They say, don't do too much cardio or you'll burn muscle. Is that a myth too?
That's a great one to bust. For most people doing moderate amounts of cardio for health, no, cardio does not magically eat your muscle. The concern mostly applies to extreme endurance training, like preparing for ultramarathons, combined with inadequate calories and protein. At normal health-promoting levels, cardio and strength actually support each other.
So the cardio kills gains idea is another piece of gym mythology.
It is. And the reverse myth is that strength training doesn't help your heart. Resistance exercise places a healthy load on your blood vessels. Over time, it can help reduce resting blood pressure and improve the ability of your arteries to relax. It isn't a replacement for aerobic work, but it absolutely contributes to cardiovascular health.
You know, I think that's the real headline. These two types of movement are teammates, not rivals.
Yes, and once you see that, the entire fitness industry's either-or framing starts to fall apart.
So tell me if I understand the biology correctly. Cardio is mostly training the delivery system, heart, lungs, blood vessels. Strength is mostly training the tissue that actually uses the fuel. Is that fair?
That's a useful first pass, but they overlap more than the label suggests. Aerobic work also increases the number of mitochondria inside your muscle cells and improves how well those muscles use oxygen. Strength work also challenges your cardiovascular system, especially if you move continuously with short rests. So it isn't two separate boxes, it's more like two different types of stress the body needs.
Different stresses. That makes intuitive sense. Growth comes from the right kind of stress, not from avoiding it.
Exactly. And for aging, the right stresses are signals to your body that you still need your strength, your oxygen delivery, and your balance. The body keeps what you use.
Use it or lose it. That's not just a slogan then.
It's real biology. Cells respond to mechanical and metabolic demand. If you never challenge your bones with load, your body sees no reason to keep them dense. If you never challenge your heart with more oxygen demand, your body sees no reason to keep your VO2 max high.
But wait, if strength is so important, why did walking get all the public health attention for so long?
Part of it is history. Aerobic exercise was easier to study in large populations, and the heart disease story dominated for decades. Strength training was seen as niche, even vain. But as the evidence matured, researchers kept finding that muscle strengthening activity had independent links to lower mortality. That changed the picture.
So public health advice lagged behind the science.
It often does. Guidelines are conservative and they wait for a strong body of evidence. That's why we're now seeing +2 strength days in recommendations, because the data became impossible to ignore.
That's reassuring and a little frustrating at the same time. I followed the old advice faithfully for years.
And the old advice wasn't wrong, it was incomplete. Walking still matters. But now we can do better with a small addition.
And I ask a slightly personal question. As a nutritionist, do you see people my age who have normal blood tests but still have low muscle mass? Is that a hidden problem?
I see it constantly. Blood tests can look fine, while muscle mass is quietly declining. That's why we have terms like osteopenia and sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is age-related loss of muscle mass and strength. It's not just about weakness. It's linked to higher risk of falls, worse metabolic health, and lower quality of life.
Sarcopenia. That's a word I want to remember. And the antidote is strength training?
Progressive resistance training is the most effective tool we have to slow and even partly reverse age-related muscle loss. Nutrition matters too, especially protein, but the mechanical signal from lifting, pushing, pulling, and carrying is irreplaceable.
So if I do nothing else, adding 2 days of resistance could be one of the most protective decisions I make.
It ranks extremely high on the longevity list. And the nice thing is, you don't need to become an athlete to get a large share of the benefit.
Okay. So what are the actual recommendations? I've seen so many different numbers online that I honestly don't know what to trust.
Let's ground it in the broad public health guidance. The World Health Organization and many national guidelines recommend at least 150 to 300 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity per week, plus muscle strengthening activities on at least 2 days a week. If you prefer vigorous activity, the range is 75 to 150 minutes per week.
That sounds more doable than I expected, but I'm a little embarrassed. I've never known whether my walk counts as moderate.
Good question. Moderate intensity means you can talk but not sing. Your heart rate is up, you're breathing a little faster, but you can still hold a conversation. If you're huffing too much to finish a sentence, that's vigorous.
That's a useful test. So my brisk walk where I can still chat with my wife but couldn't belt out a song, that's moderate.
Perfect example. And here's the practical piece the research supports. Spreading it across the week appears to beat doing it all on one Saturday.
Why is spreading better?
For one thing, consistency keeps the beneficial signals going. Every session gives your blood vessels, muscles, and mitochondria a positive nudge. If you cram everything into one day, you lose those regular nudges, and you also increase injury risk. The body responds best to frequent, manageable doses.
So instead of one heroic weekend workout, it's better to do shorter sessions most days.
Yes. And when you add strength, you don't have to create a separate gym day identity. You can attach it to things you already do.
So what would a balanced week actually look like for someone like me? I'm not trying to run a marathon or become a bodybuilder. I just want to stay functional and live longer.
Let's build it practically. On 5 days a week, you could do 30 minutes of brisk walking, cycling, or swimming. On 2 of those days, not necessarily separate days, after your walk, you could do a short strength routine. Sit to stands, wall push ups, a few rows using a light resistance band, maybe some calf raises.
So I could do my walk and then strength right after? It doesn't need to be on different days?
In most cases, yes. The evidence supports total weekly volume more than a rigid split. Just be mindful of how your body feels. If you're brand new to strength training, start with 2 non-consecutive days to allow recovery.
That removes a huge mental barrier for me. I kept thinking I needed to join a gym, learn a complicated program, and spend an hour on machines. Now you're telling me I can do it in my living room with a chair and a resistance band.
Exactly. And the chair is your best friend when you're starting. A sit to stand is basically a squat for real life. You rise from the chair, slowly sit back down, and repeat. It builds the exact muscles you need to get off the toilet, out of a car, or up from a low sofa.
The toilet test, that's the longevity benchmark we should all care about.
I use it in my practice precisely because it makes the science tangible. Independence is about real life strength, not gym numbers. Of course, if you have existing heart disease, uncontrolled blood pressure, joint pain, or a history of falls, that's definitely a conversation to have with your doctor or a physical therapist before starting a new strength routine. Movement is powerful, but it has to be matched to your current capacity.
That's fair. And I think, especially for people in my age group, a little professional guidance can make all the difference between confidence and injury.
And can I share the finding that surprised me most when I first came across it?
Please.
Cardiorespiratory fitness declines with age. But the decline is not inevitable. It's largely influenced by training status. Sedentary adults can lose a meaningful percentage of VO2 max per decade, but people who keep training often slow that decline dramatically. Similarly, muscle mass and strength decline with age, but the rate is far from set in stone.
So aging doesn't automatically wreck us. Inactivity does a lot of the damage.
That's an empowering shift. We can't stop time, but we can change how we age. That's exactly why the false choice between cardio and strength is so limiting. It asks one question, which should I do? When the real question is, how do I preserve both oxygen delivery and muscle power over the next 20 years?
That's a bigger and better question.
If you look at populations that tend to stay active into advanced age, you rarely see them doing just one type of movement. They walk, garden, carry water, climb hills, squat to cook, lift grandchildren, and sit on the floor. That's aerobic and strength woven into daily life.
That's something I've noticed in travel documentaries. People in their 80s and 90s still moving easily, squatting, carrying baskets. They didn't choose cardio or strength. They just lived physically.
Exactly. The word exercise is recent. Movement is ancient. The research supports what those communities demonstrate. The human body expects both endurance and resistance. That's how it stays functional.
So the gym split between cardio day and leg day might be a modern invention that actually confuses people.
It can be useful for athletes with specific goals. But for general health and longevity, the false binary does more harm than good. It makes people think they're failing if they can't follow a strict program, or that one type is enough.
Do I need to eat anything special to make the strength part work? Because I've seen protein powder ads everywhere, and I honestly don't know if that's necessary.
Good question. And it's another place where the wellness industry profits from confusion. You don't need a protein powder to start. Whole foods, eggs, yogurt, fish, beans, lentils, chicken, tofu are fine for most people. The key is to have some protein distributed across your meals, which helps muscle repair. If you're eating a varied diet, you're likely getting enough to support a beginner strength routine.
That's a relief. I was half expecting you to say I needed a blender full of supplements.
Haha, the evidence really doesn't support that for most people. Whole food first, movement second, consistency third. Supplements are a very distant fourth and often unnecessary.
How hard should the strength movements feel? Because if I do a wall push up and feel nothing, I'm probably wasting my time, right?
A good guide is to aim for a level where the last few repetitions of each set feel challenging but still doable with good form. If you can do 20 easily, you might need a harder variation or a bit more resistance. If you can't do 5 without losing form, you need an easier variation.
So there's a middle ground between easy and impossible. That's where the benefit lives.
Exactly. We call it progressive overload in the lab, but you don't need the jargon. You just need to give the muscle a reason to adapt, then gradually ask a little more as it gets easier.
Is there a difference between muscle strength and muscle power? I read something about power being important for fall prevention.
Great distinction. Strength is how much force you can produce. Power is how quickly you can produce it. Power matters a lot for catching yourself if you trip. Simple, fast movements like rising from a chair quickly or stepping up onto a stair with some speed help train power.
So I shouldn't move in slow motion all the time.
Right. Once you feel comfortable with controlled movements, adding a little speed to the standing up part of a sit to stand is a simple way to train power. Of course, only if your joints and balance are up for it.
That's good to know. I'll keep that in mind after I've built some baseline strength. What about balance? I know balance isn't exactly cardio or strength, but it seems to sit between them.
Balance is the third pillar that often gets ignored. It relies on your muscles, your inner ear, your vision, and your brain's ability to integrate all of that. Strength training helps balance because stronger legs and hips make it easier to correct your position. Aerobic work helps by keeping your nervous system responsive. So again, the pairing shows up.
So I could add a little balance challenge while I'm doing my strength moves.
Yes. Once you're stable, try doing a sit to stand with your feet a little closer together. Or pause for a second at the top. Small changes make a big difference over time.
And recovery. Do I need to worry about that?
For a beginner, doing 2 short sessions a week, normal sleep and a day between sessions is usually enough. Muscle gets stronger during recovery, not during the exercise itself. Sleep is when a lot of the repair happens.
So my afternoon nap might be part of my fitness plan.
You could argue that. Sleep is completely underrated for both strength and endurance adaptations.
Let's say someone listening has done only cardio for 20 years and feels too old to start strength. What would you tell them?
I'd say you are exactly the person who can benefit most. The research shows that even people who start resistance training in their 70s and 80s can build meaningful strength and improve function. It's never a clean slate, but it's never too late.
That's a message a lot of people need to hear. I needed to hear it.
And you don't have to be sore for days to be making progress. Gentle consistency beats occasional intensity for most people starting out.
I'll be honest, Claire. I spent years thinking I was doing enough. This conversation feels like a friendly nudge rather than a guilt trip.
That's exactly the spirit. Guilt doesn't build muscle or expand lungs. Curiosity and small action do. By the way, if this conversation is clearing up some confusion for you, hit subscribe and turn on the bell. We release a new evidence-based episode every day. No wellness hype, no fear-mongering, just what the research actually shows.
And let me tell you, Claire, I've learned more from these short episodes than from years of reading random health articles online.
That's the goal. Health knowledge should feel empowering, not exhausting. Let me leave you with the simplest version. Don't ask whether to choose cardio or strength. Ask how to pair them in the same week. Aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate aerobic work, plus 2 days of muscle strengthening activity and spread it out.
For me, tomorrow morning, I'm doing my usual brisk walk. But when I get home, before the kettle even finishes boiling, I'm doing 2 sets of sit to stands and wall push ups. That's my promise to myself.
I love that, Robert. And notice how small that is. You're not overhauling your life. You're adding a few minutes of something your muscles need.
That's the whole point. You've made exercise feel achievable rather than overwhelming.
Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time on Longevity Lab.